I served as empress for 30 years, the crown prince was attentive during my lifetime, and the emperor held me in high respect. Even with thousands of concubines, no one ever surpassed me, yet I never expected that after death, when the ghost officials came to register souls, they said I was an unnamed wandering spirit. No, I am the empress of the great Liang dynasty, with a name and a title. How could I be a wandering spirit? The ghost official flipped through the ledger. The great Liang empress buried in the imperial tomb was named Song Fui. But you claim your name is Shen Qingyao. That's wrong. Song Fui was my older sister, who long since became a nun and left the world of secular life. He showed me the scene of the day I was laid to rest. The emperor cast my corpse aside and let Song Fui take my place. The crown prince said, "Father, if there's a next life, I'd rather have Aunt Sung as my empress mother than a mother as fat as a pig." I was so enraged I fainted on the spot. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn on the day of my son's 10th birthday. When the emperor had just sent someone to claim him as kin, he looked at the meal I had cooked myself. About to grimace, I said, "Finish this meal and go find your father right away. I'm not even full. I can't afford to feed you anymore." 01 Zhao Mingxi had just picked up his chopsticks when he froze. "Child, what did you say?" I slowly moved the pork shoulder in front of me. I said, "I'm out of money, I can't afford to support you anymore. You said your father came looking for you at the academy, didn't you? I've supported you for 10 years. From now on, you go live with your father." Zhao Mingxi stared in disbelief. "Mother, are you angry because I didn't recognize you when you came to bring food the other day?" My chopsticks paused for a moment. Zhao Mingxi was diligent and academically gifted at first. Huaishan Academy had already reached full enrollment. To get him admitted, I cooked for the headmaster for 3 months and voluntarily cleaned the classrooms. Only then did I win over the headmaster's wife, who finally interceded on my behalf. Once he entered the academy, he truly proved himself worthy. Though a few years older than his classmates, he quickly caught up with the rest. The headmaster praised him for his intelligence, and I felt proud too, but I don't know from when. After he started attending school, my words gradually lost their effect. Perhaps it was because his classmates said he was so brilliant, and his father must surely be a prominent figure. Or maybe it was because he read more books and developed broader horizons. Every time I brought him food, though he never said anything, there was growing impatience in his eyes. That day, when I went to see him off, he even pretended not to know me right in front of everyone. As I walked back, my heart felt heavy, and I tripped and fell accidentally. That fall brought back a flood of memories from my past lives. In a previous life, I once picked up a man whose face had been disfigured on the roadside. His name is Zhao Jingrui. He claims to be a traveling merchant who was ambushed by bandits, and his parents are both dead at that time. I had a kind heart and couldn't bear to see him lying dead by the roadside, so I carried him home and cared for him tenderly. After he recovered from his injuries, I asked him whether he would like to stay and become my husband. He said yes. The day after our wedding, he disappeared. I searched for a long time, cried many times, and eventually assumed he must have met with misfortune. Later I found out that Zhao Jingrui wasn't a merchant at all. He was the 3rd prince of the imperial court. During the time he was recovering outside the palace, a major incident had occurred within the court. The crown prince was murdered, the emperor was poisoned, and the remaining princes either died or were crippled. Only he remained capable of bearing the burden. Zhao Jingrui received the news and joyfully returned to inherit the throne. Later, he married many concubines, but none of them bore a prince. Finally, he remembered me. After investigating, he discovered that I had given birth to a son. Zhao Jingrui immediately brought Zhao Mingxi back to the palace, and thanks to my son, I was elevated to the position of empress. He even helped me find my biological parents. It turned out my father and mother were officials, with my father serving as a prefectural governor. My mother had also adopted a daughter, named Song Fui. I lived in the palace for 30 years, serving as empress for 3 decades. I thought Zhao Jingrui deeply cherished me, so that even with so many concubines, no one could surpass me. But after my death, when I arrived in the underworld, the ghost officials came to register me, and said I was a nameless wandering spirit. They said the great Liang empress buried in the imperial mausoleum was named Song Fui. My coffin contained her remains. 02 Zhao Mingxi carefully put down his chopsticks, his voice also dropping to a whisper. Mother, I'll eat less, please don't make me leave. I looked at that face, so eerily identical to Zhao Jingrui's, and sighed inwardly. Zhao Mingxi was sickly as a child, frequently falling ill every few days. I'd carry him to every clinic in the town, boiled medicine, fed him pills, and couldn't sleep deeply at night every time I heard him cough. I'd jolt awake those years. I lost a lot of weight. Later, as he gradually recovered, I slowly gained it back. He was a child I raised with my own hands. How could he turn out this way? I thought, but couldn't figure out where I might have wronged him. Is it because I stopped him from taking the flower queen of a brothel as his secondary wife? Or is it simply because I'm too fat? You told your classmates I was your family's maid and that your father was an official. Zhao Mingxi's expression changed, his lips twitching. After a long silence, he said, "If I didn't say that, people would look down on me. Besides, isn't my father truly an official?" His eyes flickered as he spoke, and he dared not look me in the face. I understood in my heart that Zhao Jingrui must have just approached him not long ago and hadn't yet revealed his true identity. He only knew that the man was rich and powerful, far more respectable than this cooking mother. "You're right, your father isn't just a high-ranking official, he's the emperor." Zhao Mingxi suddenly lifted his head, his eyes suddenly sparkling, his lips curving up uncontrollably. My heart felt as if someone had poured a bucket of cold water over it. "Mother, if father is the emperor, then I'm just an ordinary commoner girl. I could never be empress," I interrupted him. "I've already made arrangements with your father, you may go now." Zhao Mingxi's smile froze on his face. During the day, Zhao Jingrui had sent someone to look for me. The messenger was well-dressed and courteous, saying the emperor, moved by old feelings, was willing to take me into the palace. Though I wouldn't be given the position of empress, I would certainly be granted the rank of a concubine. I couldn't help but laugh after hearing that. In my past life, I haggled and bargained, using the fact that I bore a son to forcefully secure the position of empress from him. I endured 30 years in the palace, only to ultimately lose even the right to my own coffin this life. I don't want to enter the palace ever again, so I only asked for 50,000 taels of silver. It's enough to ensure my livelihood for the rest of my life. As for my son, he has his imperial father and a splendid future ahead. Since you think I, as a mother, am unworthy, let's just go our separate ways. 03 After finishing dinner, I started packing Zhao Mingxi's luggage. It's going to turn cold soon. He needs to wear more layers. I carefully folded each thick garment and then dug out the medicine he usually takes, stuffing it into the bundle. No matter how I reasoned it over and over, my hands suddenly froze. In mid-motion, Zhao Jingrui was the emperor. What didn't he have? I stopped, pushed the bundle aside, and said, "He'll come to get you soon. Follow him." Zhao Mingxi sat there, eyes fixed on the door, full of hope. Not long after, the sound of carriage wheels rolling over the cobblestones echoed through the air. Zhao Mingxi suddenly stood up, excitedly rushing out to meet it. The door opened. Zhao Jingrui's face once again appeared before me. After returning to the palace, he had his facial wounds completely healed, leaving no trace behind. The scars from years ago were long gone. Before me stood an emperor with a handsome face and immaculate attire. When he saw me, a flicker of surprise passed through his eyes. He probably never expected that the woman who saved him years ago would end up looking like this now. I said, "Your Majesty, this is your son. Take him away," he croaked out. "If you're thinking of, no thanks, I'm going to sleep." I closed the door. Outside the door, Zhao Mingxi's voice urged, "Father, Your Majesty, we should go now." Footsteps faded away, and the sound of wheels grew distant. The room suddenly felt terribly empty. 04 The next morning, I washed my face with a basin of water. The water swayed unevenly, reflecting a face. Am I fat? A bit, maybe, but I studied it closely for a while. The features are quite nice. Really, they used to be praised as elegant when I was thin. My house was always being visited by lechers, so annoying I couldn't stand it. After gaining weight, I became stronger and could fight back, so nobody dared to bother me anymore. Isn't this just great? Yet, whenever I recall that phrase I heard in the underworld, my heart still feels a sudden stab, as if pricked by a needle. Fat as a pig. My own son, whom I raised with my own hands, sees me like this. And in that past life, I only lived to 58, dying in agony. The court physicians said my illness was caused by obesity. Plagued by ailments all over my body, my passing was far from Dignified, never mind. This lifetime, I want to live a little longer. I only steamed one bun for myself after finishing. I wiped my mouth, changed into neat clothes, and stepped out the door. Then I took a deep breath and started running. I hadn't run far before I started panting, breathing heavily, drenched in sweat, my chest feeling as if a heavy stone were pressing down on it. But I didn't stop. After finishing my run, I went to the academy to see the headmaster and told him about Zhao Mingxi's withdrawal. The headmaster put down his book, frowned, and asked me what had happened. I said, "He has better options available." He sighed, his tone tinged with regret. "Zhao Mingxi is a promising child, full of potential, but a bit too restless. If he could just focus and refine himself over a few years, there's no doubt he could achieve great things. Now that he's left, it's truly a pity." I nodded without offering further explanation. Just then, the headmaster's wife entered with tea and overheard the conversation. She immediately set down her teacup and hurried to comfort me, holding my hand. "Don't be too heartbroken. Children are still children. No matter how far they go, they're still flesh and blood from you. I'm not sad at all, really. By the way, madam, I've been trying to lose weight recently. Do you have any good tips?" She paused, gave me a quick look up and down, then smiled. "I happen to know a doctor, a practitioner from Beijing, excellent in his skills. He can combine acupuncture with treatment to help with weight loss. If you're interested, I can introduce you." My eyes lit up. "That would be wonderful. I'd appreciate it if you could introduce me to her." 05 That's how I met Dr. Gu. Dr. Gu was good-looking, with well-proportioned features. Though his personality was a bit cold, he didn't like to talk or make small talk, and when examining patients, he was extremely brief, answering half a sentence for every question asked. He rented a small courtyard in the town, hung a wooden sign outside, and sat quietly to treat patients. He also had a son with him, about 4 or 5 years old, cute and adorable, like a little porcelain doll, but he couldn't speak. On his first visit for acupuncture, I brought a pack of freshly made osmanthus cake and casually placed it on the table. Ji Yuan, the son of Dr. Ji Yu, was hiding behind the door frame, his little nose twitching as he sniffed, his eyes fixed intently on the plate of pastries. I waved at him, and he glanced back at his father. Ji Yu Xingji didn't even lift his head, calmly saying, "No taking." Ji Yuan quickly retreated, obediently standing by the door. I couldn't stand it, so while Ji Yu Xingji turned around to get the needles, I secretly slipped a piece into Ji Yuan's hand. The little guy took it, bit off a small piece, his cheeks puffing up, chewing carefully like a little squirrel sneaking a snack. From then on, every time I went for acupuncture, I brought an extra treat. Sometimes it's red date paste pastry, sometimes lotus seed cake, and occasionally a few small meat-filled steamed buns. Ji Yuan always eats with great satisfaction, holding the pastries and sitting on the threshold, nibbling at them bit by bit. He can't speak, but every time he sees me, he runs over to fetch a stool for me. I pinch his cheek. It's soft and plump, so adorable. These days of dieting aren't easy. Can't eat this, can't eat that. I used to devour 3 pieces of pork knuckle in one sitting, but now I can only chew on half, and I have to savor every bite, as if counting each grain of rice as I swallow it. The large bowl I used to serve rice in has been replaced with a small one. Even after finishing a bowl, my stomach still feels empty, a burning sensation deep inside, so I have to drink 2 bowls of cold tea to calm it down. I fall asleep counting braised pork knuckles, red braised lamb, seasoned beef, and so on. Though the days are painful, at least there's some reward in seeing my waistline shrinking inch by inch. 06 The more often I go, the more I realize how inconvenient it is for Ji Yu Xingji to raise the child alone. Ji Yuan's clothes were too short, the sleeves hanging above his wrists, exposing a patch of pale bare arm, and he hadn't even noticed. I couldn't bear watching anymore, so I went back, took his measurements, and cut out 2 pieces of fine cotton cloth, making him 2 new outfits after the little fellow changed into them. He was delighted beyond words, examining himself repeatedly in the bronze mirror. He gestured with his hands, pointing first at himself, then toward the outer room, and made a motion as if sewing. After pondering for a while, I finally realized he was asking whether I could make a set of clothes for his father too. I thought for a moment, then said casually, "Your dad's frame is so good looking. He'd look fine even in a burlap sack. No need for new clothes." The words had barely left my mouth when a dry cough sounded from behind. Ji-yu Singji had quietly entered with a bowl of medicine, his expression unchanged, his tone neither cold nor warm. If Lady Shen has any extra gunny bags, I'd like one. I was stunned. What do you need that for? To wear as a cloak? Me. Ji-yuan hiding behind the door, stifling his laughter with his hand, his eyes crinkling into two crescent moons. I dared not really give him a burlap sack. Instead, I carefully sewed him a deep blue straight-sleeved robe. When Ji-yu Xing took it, he said nothing, immediately putting it on. His posture was upright and dignified, truly living up to my words that he'd look good even if draped in a burlap sack. I boldly said, Dr. Ji-yu, can this outfit cover the medical bill? He paused, expressionless. Take it. Just kidding. Just kidding. I quickly smiled nervously. Why pay for medicine? I could just pay the consultation fee. He didn't reply, turning to write the prescription instead. But why was his ear tip red? The longer I spent with him, the more I realized that Ji-yu Singji was truly clumsy when it came to taking care of kids. Ji-yuan's hair was always messy, a tangle of stray strands sticking up every which way. I couldn't bear to look anymore, so I sat him down on the stool and carefully combed his hair from scratch. Ji-yuan shook his head playfully, delighted, clapping his hands with joy. The shoes no longer fit either. My toes kept hitting the front, making walking painful. I measured again, stitched the soles, and made 2 pairs of soft-soled cloth shoes, one for Ji-yuan, the other for Ji-yu Singji. I didn't dare mention the debt repayment this time. Once, after finishing acupuncture, Ji-yuan crouched in the yard playing with pebbles, and I sat beside him watching. After gathering up his medical kit, Ji-yu Singji unexpectedly spoke up, saying that Ji-yuan wasn't unable to speak. He had been traumatized, and ever since then, he had refused to speak. As for what exactly the trauma was, he didn't go into detail, and I didn't ask, but I could guess it wasn't something pleasant. A child so young, refusing to speak at all. What kind of shock must he have endured? I looked at his back as he crouched on the ground, carefully arranging the pebbles, and my heart ached. 3 months have passed, and my weight loss has made great progress, though I'm not yet slender. At least I've transformed from an outrageously fat figure that's unforgettable to a pleasantly plump one that's still pleasing to the eye. Her waist gradually slimmed, and she walked with a noticeably lighter step. So many letters had arrived from the palace. I glanced through them briefly, and the words brimmed with sorrow and Zhao Mingxi had been registered under the imperial concubine's name, but the concubine disliked him. Today she'd scold him for being unruly, and tomorrow she'd secretly make his life miserable. How could a 10-year-old child possibly understand such underhanded tactics within the palace harem? The letter was written in a crooked scrawl, repeating the same sentence over and over. Mother, will you come to the palace to stay with me? I miss you. After reading it, I folded the letter neatly and put it into a box. 08 That day, I happened to be delivering a sachet to Ji-yu Singji. Ji-yuan often has nightmares at night. He prepared a herbal pouch to calm the mind and soothe the spirit, saying he needed to carry it close to his body to sleep peacefully. But his original sachet had worn through. Seeing it, I offered to sew him a new one. As soon as he turned into the alley, a burst of laughter reached his ears. Several teenagers huddled together, with Ji-yuan in the center. He was shoved around, staggering, his back pressed against the wall, yet he clutched whatever was in his hand tightly, refusing to let go. Tears streaked his face, his lips tightly pressed together. Saying nothing, I flew into a rage and rushed forward. Get lost. Who gave you the right to bully people? The leader of the kids turned around, with a sharp nose and a sly face, eyeing me up and down. Who are you to this little mute? He stole something from me last time. We're making him pay. Another kid joined in the uproar. Ji-yuan shook his head desperately. Me. Ji-yuan wouldn't steal anything. I'm his mother. I gave birth to him, so I naturally know him. If you dare bully him again, I'll teach you a lesson. I'm not afraid to spank kids. The other children froze for a moment, looking at each other in astonishment. Someone muttered quietly, "Didn't you say this mute girl doesn't have a mother?" The leader, furious and embarrassed, raised his foot to kick Ji-yuan leaning against the wall, but seeing me glaring at him from in front, he ultimately dared not make a move. The others exchanged a glance and quickly slipped away. The alley fell silent. Ji-yuan slowly opened his hand. 2 red dates lay in the palm of his hand. Warm from being clenched, he pointed at his mouth, then at me. I was stunned for a moment, then suddenly understood. The last time Gu Singji prescribed medicine, it was too bitter, and I frowned, complaining whether I could add some sugar. He remained expressionless, saying, "Bitter medicine cures sickness." After a pause, he added quietly, "You can have 2 red dates after taking the medicine." That casual remark, the boy remembered. My nose grew tight with emotion, and I knelt down, hugging him tightly into my arms, planting a soft kiss on his plump little cheek. "Thank you, Aaron." Ji-Yuan froze for a moment, then buried his face into the crook of my shoulder, his small body trembling slightly. 09 At that moment, the sound of rolling carriage wheels came from the entrance of the alley. A green-curtained carriage came to a stop, and one corner of the curtain was lifted open. A gaunt face appeared, that of Cho Myongi. He had lost weight considerably compared to 3 months ago, with dark circles under his eyes and a pale complexion. "Mother, I wrote you so many letters, why didn't you answer me?" My gaze slowly shifted toward Ji-Yuan in my arms. "Who is this?" I stood up, holding Ji-Yuan's hand, and asked, "How did you come back?" Zhao Mingxi jumped down from the carriage and threw herself into my arms, her voice trembling with tears. "Mother, I missed you so much." He kept on talking intermittently for a long time. When he fell ill in the palace, the emperor was busy and entrusted him to the care of the consort Gui. Consort Gui didn't like him. When the medicine was bitter and he refused to drink, she didn't care, saying, "Fine. If you don't want to drink, just don't." The illness dragged on, and his health continued to deteriorate. Grand Tutor thought him dull-witted, and my father was disappointed in him, but all that was just due to his illness. As he spoke, he suddenly stopped, took a half-step back, and stared at me from head to toe. His eyes instantly lit up. "Mother, you've gotten so thin, you look so beautiful now. Mother, come back to the palace with me." He rushed forward again, hugging my arm. "If the emperor sees you like this, he'll surely take notice of you. Who knows, maybe you could even challenge the empress." I was about to speak when another round of hurried horse hooves sounded from the alley entrance. A eunuch dismounted and ran over, breathless. "Little prince, what are you doing here? Come back with me at once. Your Majesty will be furious if he finds out." Zhao Mingxi turned pale, clutching my sleeve tightly. "I'm not going back. Mother, come back with me." The eunuch wiped sweat from his brow and whispered, "Little prince, don't cause trouble. The empress has just entered the palace. You're running off like this. If she hears of it, will only make your life even harder from now on." Zhao Mingxi stared in shock. "Empress? What empress?" The eunuch also blinked in surprise. "You don't know. The emperor has already bestowed the title of empress upon the daughter of the general who pacified the south, and the grand ceremony was held just a few days ago." Zhao Mingxi felt as if he'd been doused with a bucket of ice water. He turned to look at me, his lips moving silently, his eyes instantly filled with tears, brimming with resentment and sorrow. "How could this happen, mother? If you had come into the palace with me back then, how could she have taken your place?" The eunuch beside me urged me urgently, but Zhao Mingxi refused to leave, his eyes red as he stubbornly stood in place, staring at me. Ji-Yuan had quietly been standing beside us all along. When Zhao Mingxi lunged forward, he silently stepped back 2 paces, making room for him. I shoved the sachet into his hand and took back the red dates he had given me. "I'm not going to the clinic today. You go back and tell your father for me. Tomorrow, I'll bring you some delicious osmanthus cake." "Okay." Ji-Yuan nodded obediently and walked away. 10 Zhao Mingxi stared at his back, frowning, and asked urgently, "Mother, who is he? Why are you making osmanthus cake for him? You said you'd only make it for me, didn't you?" His tone sounded like an accusation. "Yes, I did say that before, just for me, Maya." Back then he had just begun to learn, and every day after returning from school, his first task was to lift the cloth covering the steamer and check whether there were any newly steamed osmanthus cakes. Holding the warm cakes in his hands, he'd blow on them while stuffing pieces into his mouth, crumbs sticking to his lips, laughing at me with his eyes crinkled up. But what happened later? He'd rather feed the pastries I gave him to the dog. Was it my fault for always making these overly sweet foods? Was I trying to make him as fat as I am? After that, I gradually gave up the idea and never made anything for him again. He probably forgot all about it himself when I was a child and fell ill, feverish and delirious. My mouth tasted bland, and I couldn't eat anything. I kept tossing and turning, muttering faintly, Mother, I want to eat Osmanthus cake. I got up in the middle of the night to knead dough, then steamed it and carried it to his bedside. He took a bite, a red-faced smile spreading across his small, rosy cheeks as he said, "Mother's food is the best." He probably doesn't remember those things at all. Looking at this young man dressed in fine clothes, I tried to think it through again, but still couldn't figure out where I went wrong in raising him. Ji-Yuan is a good child. I only said that, then pulled my sleeve out of his hand. Go back and take good care of yourself. Take your medicine on time. Zhao Mingxi grew anxious. Mother, are you coming back to the palace with me or not? Everything one could want is available in the palace. You don't need to work so hard. Just ask the emperor for whatever you need or desire. The eunuch whispered urgently beside me. Your Highness, we should go. If we don't leave now, we really will be too late. I suddenly felt exhausted. No, I'm quite content here. You go ahead and return, no matter how good the palace is. It has nothing to do with me. Zhao Mingxi kept crying and protesting, refusing to go back. 11. The eunuchs kept urging him, saying kind words until they were tired, but he acted as if he hadn't heard a thing, gripping my sleeve tightly, looking at me with such a pitiful, helpless expression, just like when he was a child and had been wronged. If this had happened before, I would have already softened up. I said, Axie, I'm just an ordinary commoner. Did you ever think about my situation when you summoned me to the palace? What is the palace, anyway? A place that eats people and spits out nothing but bones. How would the consort Gui view me, a commoner with no family background or influential connections entering the palace? How would the empress view me, and how would those other consorts look at me? Zhao Mingxi's lips moved, her expression filled with disappointment. Mother, you used to care for me the most. Why now? What exactly have I done wrong for you to be so ruthless? I said nothing, just stared at him. His face slowly turned pale, uneasy under my gaze. He murmured, I didn't mean it that way. Then what did you mean? I asked softly. Didn't you hate me for being fat? Hate me for only bringing you shame? No, I didn't. He quickly denied it. I just envy other people's mothers. They're slim and beautiful, look good in anything, and don't get pointed at or stared at when walking down the street. I've been skinny before too. You probably forgot. Zhao Mingxi's voice caught in his throat. Unable to utter another word, I pulled my sleeve free and entered the courtyard without looking back. A eunuch's hushed pleas and Zhao Mingxi's stifled sobs came from behind. After a long while, the footsteps finally faded away. 12. The next day, I went to the clinic for acupuncture. Ji Xingji finished feeling the pulse and said blandly, You won't need to come back after a few more treatments. I let out a sigh of relief and laughed. That's great. I finally won't have to be turned into a porcupine again. Every time after the acupuncture, my body would be covered with needle marks. Like a lotus seed pod walking down the street, I felt like I was whistling through gaps everywhere, thinking about how fortunate we've been thanks to Dr. Ji and his son lately. I said, to thank Dr. Ji, I'll cook something for you all, give you a taste of my skills. Ji sat beside me, and as soon as he heard that, he nodded eagerly, his little head bobbing up and down like a chick pecking at grain. Ji Xingji glanced at him and asked, What ingredients do you need? I'll go buy them. I said, Never mind, I'll go with you. So the three of them went to the marketplace together. Ji Xingji walked ahead, and I followed behind with Ji picking and choosing various items. When I reached for my money, Ji Xingji had already stepped forward and handed over a silver ingot. They stopped at a jewelry stall, and suddenly Ji paused, staring intently at a hairpin. It was a jade hairpin, exquisitely crafted, with a few tiny pearls sewn onto its tip. Very beautiful. He tugged at Ji Xingji's sleeve, pointing first at the hairpin, then at me. The shopkeeper chuckled. What a thoughtful child. He knows to get his mother a gift from his father. I quickly waved my hands. No, I'm not his mother. How much? Ji Xingji asked. The shopkeeper quoted a price. He immediately handed over the silver. Ji took the hairpin and held it up in front of me, looking at me with hopeful eyes. He made a gesture twice, meaning for me to bow my head. It's too valuable. I can't accept it. Ji pouted, then reached for Ji Xingji's sleeve again. Ji Xingji reached out and took the hairpin, gently placing it into my hair. His fingers brushed against my hair, causing my heart to race inexplicably. For a moment, given to you, Bayan, I touched the hairpin in my hair and lowered my head. Just meeting Ji Yuan's eyes, he clapped his hands, meaning look, it's nice. Thank you, Aren. I'll make you a delicious dinner tonight. Ji Yuan nodded vigorously. 13 after dinner. Ji Yuan didn't want me to leave. Ji Xingji glanced down at him, then gently ran his hand over his head. I'll her back. You stay home and behave. He bit his lip, hesitated for a long moment, then slowly let go of my hand and stood at the doorway, gazing after us with longing eyes as we stepped out. The moonlight was beautiful, and the alleyway was silent, save for the sound of two people's footsteps. After walking a while, Ji Xingji suddenly spoke. Ji Yuan was adopted by me. I turned to look at him. He is my master's grandson. My master's entire family was murdered. I avenged them. But Ji Yuan had been hiding under the bed and witnessed the whole thing. My heart clenched sharply, and my steps instinctively slowed. Since then, he hasn't spoken a word. I never expected. My voice trembled slightly. How could he possibly endure something like that at such a young age? Ji Xingji also showed a hint of sympathy. He likes you. And the rest of his sentence was carried away by the wind, and I couldn't quite catch it. I replied, I also really like Ji Yuan. He looked at me for a moment, then said nothing more. At the entrance of the courtyard, I noticed several people standing under the locust tree. Zhao Mingxi was at the front, and as soon as he saw me, he rushed over, his face brimming with uncontainable excitement. Mother, the emperor has found your grandfather and the others. Mother, you're actually a noblewoman. You're not a commoner. You're the daughter of a prefect, Mr. Wang stepped forward a pace, his lips moving slightly as he tried hard to appear deeply emotional. Mrs. Shen, no, Qingyao, we are your real parents. I glanced at them both calmly, neither submissive nor overbearing, and asked, do you have any proof? Mrs. Wang took 2 steps forward, her gaze filled with cautious, hopeful deference. There's a birthmark on the back of your neck, shaped like a peach blossom. I don't have one. As he said this, Ji Xingji suddenly glanced at me. A while ago, I asked him if there was any ointment that could cover the birthmark on the back of my neck. He didn't ask why, just nodded, and then gave me a bottle. The next day the ointment covered it completely, leaving nothing visible. But he said nothing. He simply withdrew his gaze and stood silently to the side. Zhao Mingxi grew anxious, tapping her foot and stepping closer. Mom, you do have some, don't you? I saw it with my own eyes. Right behind your neck, a pink spot, like a little flower. How could it not be there? You're a noble lady now. Even if you enter the palace as a consort, no one will dare say you're as lowly. You're the daughter of a prefect. Who could possibly look down on you? Who would say you're unworthy of the royal family? You're mistaken. That's not a birthmark, it's just dirt, and can be washed away. Believe me, look. I lowered my head, exposing the back of my neck. The skin there was perfectly clean, with no mark at all. Zhao Mingxi froze, seemingly unable to believe what he saw. The Wang couple stared at each other, the tears on Mrs. Wang's face suddenly frozen. She didn't know whether to wipe them away or not. 14 In my previous life, I first became empress, and only then did I reclaim my true family. Then the Wang family came knocking, saying I was their long-lost biological daughter. I wept with joy, feeling that heaven had been kind to me with a husband, a son, and now family of my own. I was no longer a foundling picked up from the roadside, nor a wild girl who didn't even know her own surname. I am the daughter of the Wang family. I have a father and a mother, and also an older sister. The Wang family treats me with warmth and care in every matter, showing concern and attending to every detail. Every time my mother comes to the palace to see me, she brings Song Fui and holds my hand, telling us 2 sisters to be close to each other. At the time, I was full of expectations toward familial bonds, truly treating Song Fui as my elder sister, giving her my utmost sincerity and loyalty. Yet I never expected that they would bring her into the palace merely to serve the emperor. Later on, Zhao Jingrui indeed started visiting my palace more frequently. He played chess, painted, and composed poetry with Song Fui, one playing the zither while the other blew the xiao, very much in harmony. I watched their backs, engrossed in lively conversation, and couldn't put a name to the strange feeling in my heart. Even Zhao Mingxi kept calling her sister Song, admiring her knowledge and saying she knew so much, gradually shifting his heart toward her. Song Fui is more beautiful than me, more talented, more like a refined lady of noble birth, while I am merely the plump woman who now bears the title of empress. Later, before Song Fui left the palace to become a nun, she came to see me that day. She wore a plain robe, makeupless, and sat in my chambers for a long time before finally revealing the truth. She said she had been forced by her parents to enter the palace. Qingyao, do you know, I have someone I deeply love outside the palace. He is Shen Liangsheng, a scholar from a poor family, but he has been sincere toward me. We had already agreed that once he passed the imperial examination, he would come to ask for my hand in marriage, but my parents refused. They said you're an empress yet fail to secure power for your family or extend favors to the Wang clan. Every official in court has relatives supporting them, but the Wang family, despite having an empress, gains no benefits at all. Song Fui let out a bitter smile. So they sent me here as well. My task is to gradually get close to the emperor while staying by your side. They want me to become the second pawn for the Wang family. They forced me to comply by threatening Liangsheng's life. Father said if I didn't do what they told me, Liangsheng wouldn't survive the next day. I had no choice. Qingyao, I really had no choice. I opened my mouth, but my throat felt choked. What happened after that? Why didn't you tell me? After that, her tears fell down. Liangsheng found out. He learned from somewhere about me being forced into the palace, and that my parents threatened to harm him to control me. He believed he was dragging me down, and thought that if he were gone, I wouldn't be held back anymore. He committed suicide. When Song Fui spoke these words, her eyes were lifeless. Qingyao, I'm leaving. No one can threaten me anymore. From now on, I only wish to spend the rest of my life with a dim lamp and ancient scriptures. 15. Only then did I realize she was also a pitiful person raised as a pawn by her foster parents, thrust into the palace, lost the one she loved, and in the end, was left with nothing but those things belong to a previous life. Neither the Wang couple here nor Zhao Mingxi knows about them. All they know is that I am the person they've been searching for, yet I don't want to acknowledge them anymore. It's late at night. All of you should return home. I turned around and pushed open the courtyard gate, stepping inside. At the very moment the door closed behind me, I heard Zhao Mingxi call out mother outside. I wish I had never entered the palace in this life. Then Song Fui wouldn't have been drawn into this mess, wouldn't have been used as a pawn by the Wang family and sent into the palace, wouldn't have lost the life of the one she loved, and ultimately could have spent her remaining years beneath cold lamps and with prayers, fading away in solitude. I often wonder, if in my past life I hadn't coveted that phoenix crown, if I hadn't bargained using my son's birth as currency, would everyone's fate have been different? 16. I never expected that Zhao Jingrui would come to see me in person that afternoon. The sun was just right, and my courtyard's pear tree was heavy with ripe pears. Ji Yuan was perched on Ji Yu Xingji's shoulders, ready to pick pears. He laughed, showing a row of small white teeth. Unusually happy, I was below, catching them as Ji Yuan picked one and passed it to me. Pick the one further to the left. Yes, that one looks sweet. Ji Yu Xingji moved forward, and Ji Yuan on his shoulder swayed slightly. A shadow suddenly appeared at the courtyard gate. Zhao Jingrui stood outside the threshold, dressed in dark-colored everyday attire, with only a young eunuch following behind him. Upon seeing this scene, his gaze flickered, as if momentarily dazed. My gaze fell upon Ji Yu Xingji's face, and I momentarily froze, a hint of surprise flashing across my expression. Uncle Emperor, what are you doing here? I nearly dropped the pear as my hand slipped. Uncle Emperor, he turned to look at Ji Yu Xingji, his eyes wide open. He placed Ji Yuan down on the ground without any warmth. I've opened a clinic here. Zhao Jingrui nodded, his expression still somewhat strange. Ji Yu Xingji took the pear from my arms and said, I'll wash it first. We can make pear paste together later. After finishing his words, he picked up the basket and walked into the kitchen. Ji Yuan followed closely behind, running inside. At the doorway, he glanced back at Zhao Jingrui, then looked at me, and quietly pulled the curtains shut. The courtyard fell silent, leaving just the two of us, me and Zhao Jingrui. A hint of unease lingered in his features. We actually didn't have much affection to begin with, and after all these years, it's long since dissolved. How could you end up with the imperial uncle? I'm a patient, and he's my doctor. Is His Majesty here on official business? He paused for a moment. Axi is ill. Don't we have imperial physicians? With so many of them in the imperial hospital, can't they even treat a child? He wants his mother. Zhao Jingrui's gaze fell on my face, as if momentarily struck by my appearance. Axi has been clamoring to come see you these past days. He refuses to eat properly, and has lost weight. I truly had no choice. So isn't the consort his mother? I interrupted him. His gaze returned and stayed on my face for a long time. I've lost weight and grown paler, my features much more delicate and refined than before. If you're willing, I could make you a noble, your majesty. I cut him off. I'm not willing. 17. Zhao Jingrui was stunned. The marriage between us back then doesn't count. There was no banquet, no formal engagement through 3 matchmakers and 6 rituals, no parental command, and no marriage certificate. You said you would stay and be my husband. I said yes, and then you left the next day. How does that make us husband and wife? I don't want to enter the palace, nor do I want to be your concubine. If you still care about Axi, let him study and train in martial arts in peace at the palace. Don't use him as an excuse to come find me anymore. His face darkened bit by bit, as if something had struck a nerve. Jiyu Xingji came out from the kitchen and walked over. Done talking, the pear's washed. You've been coughing a little, haven't you? I'll make you a pear paste. I'll prepare a medicinal foot soak for you tonight afterward. Zhao Jingrui's eyes flickered between Jiyu Xingji and me, his expression changing. He hesitated, then said, Your Highness uncle, you too. Jiyu Xingji looked up at him and asked coolly, What, is that not allowed? Zhao Jingrui was momentarily speechless, his voice suddenly turning deep and low. Ku Qingyao is my wife. Even this pear tree was planted by me. Isn't the empress in the palace? Qingyao has also made it clear that what she has with you doesn't count. No formal betrothal, no marriage certificate, no parental consent. On what basis do you call her your wife? The child is yours too. What else do you want? As for the pear tree, how about taking a few pears with you when you leave? I was so startled that I coughed wildly, choking on the cold air. Jiyu Xingji reached out and patted my back, calming my breath, all the while adding, I told you it's cold out, put on a jacket. Zhao Jingrui's face was ashen, his lips pressed into a tight line, and he finally left. 18. I finished coughing and caught my breath, then said to Jiyu Xingdao, Thank you, Dr. Jiyu, for saving me just now. He hesitated for a moment, then gathered his courage. That was exactly what I meant. I gasped sharply, then started coughing again. Jiyu Xingji turned and went back into the house, and a moment later came out with a cup of warm water, handing it to me. Jiyu must have quietly followed behind, carrying a small stool. He sat down and looked up at me with an innocent expression. My surname was Zhao. I was the youngest brother of the late emperor, the 18th son. My hand holding the teacup tightened slightly. However, I didn't enjoy staying in the palace, so I left, changed my surname. Now I'm just a commoner. He turned his head to glance at me, my reflection showing in his eyes. In terms of status, I am your equal. I stood there stunned for a long while before finding my voice again. But, what do you see in me? To me, you're beautiful, whether you're fat or thin. My heart skipped a beat. Jiyu Xingji thought carefully for a long time. What exactly do I find appealing about you? I honestly can't put it into words, because what I admire is your entirety. My ears were filled with those words, your entirety. My heartbeat thundered like a drum, my mouth parched with dryness. I wish to ask for Qingyao's hand in marriage. What are your thoughts? Qingyao. Jiyu Anteng suddenly jumped off the stool, his little hands clapping loudly, his mouth opening and closing repeatedly, his face turning bright red. Then he suddenly stamped his foot hard and burst out, Mother! I doubted I'd heard wrong. Jiyu Xingji was startled too. Jiyu opened his mouth, his lips trembling as he called out again, Mother! I immediately embraced him and said joyfully, Ain, say it again, Mother, Mother! Jiyu wrapped his arms around my neck, his cries growing louder with each call. He can speak now. Jiyu Xingji wiped a tear from his eye, as if with relief. Me, good. I'll wait for Dr. Jiyu to come and marry me. 19. Action speaks louder than words. Jiyu Xingji asked the head of the Mountain Academy for help to formally settle the engagement the very next day, but when the wedding gifts were carried in, I was completely stunned. I actually believed Jiyu Xingji when he said he was just an ordinary commoner, but I never expected the dowry to be this much. They kept carrying it into my courtyard, red ribbons tied everywhere, creating a festive atmosphere. With trunks stacked so high they towered over people, neighbors gathered at the courtyard gate, chattering and gossiping curiously. My little courtyard could never fit all that. The principal's wife stood in the middle of the courtyard, suddenly frowning, staring at me intently, examining me from every angle, then suddenly snapped her fingers. Isn't this the girl Xiao Jiyu was looking for back then? I looked utterly bewildered. What girl? When the academy principal heard this, he put down the betrothal gift list, leaned in, took a good look at me, and suddenly slapped his thigh. That's it. You look exactly like her now that you've slimmed down. Back then, little Jiyu came back from a late-night house call and somehow got kicked into the river by someone. He said a girl saved him. He even painted her portrait, and it's been sitting under the drawer in the clinic exactly like Qingyao. That memory sounds a bit familiar. I remember now, that was over 10 years ago. At that time I was living alone with very little money. At night, hungry and unable to sleep, I'd grab my fishing rod and go down to the river to try my luck under the moonlight. The water's surface was shining silver. No sooner had I cast my hook than I heard a splash. Something had fallen into the river. Staring closely, I realized it was a person floundering in the water, on the verge of drowning. I threw down my fishing rod and jumped into the river, pulling the person out. The person had swallowed a lot of water, dazed and disoriented, their face covered by wet hair, so I couldn't make out their features clearly. Then I heard him say thanks. I thought the person was fine after all that fuss. I didn't catch any fish, but I'd drunk my fill of water. My stomach wasn't hungry anymore, so I just said you're welcome and headed back directly. I slowly turned my head and looked at Jiyu Xingji. A deep blush spread across his face, making him look impossibly handsome. That painting, it wasn't very good. I couldn't help it and burst into laughter. 20 On the day of the wedding, red silk festooned the courtyard. Even the pear tree was tied with red ribbons, imbuing the scene with festive joy. Dressed in my crimson wedding gown, I stood in the main hall while the mountain chief's wife helped adjust the tassels on my phoenix coronet. Suddenly, a commotion arose outside. Zhao Mingxi arrived. He pushed open the courtyard gate and stood in the doorway, staring at the sea of red filling the yard, his face slowly losing all color. Mother, what are you doing? Zhao Mingxi stepped inside, her eyes falling on the bridal dress I wore, disbelief etched on her face. Who are you marrying? I won't allow it. Ji Yuan stood under the corridor, wearing the new clothes I had made for him, holding a pair of red candles in his arms. Zhao Mingxi's voice startled him, causing him to take half a step backward. Then, gathering her courage, she rushed in quickly and stood right in front of me. Mother, you're my mother, Zhao Mingxi shouted. I'm the crown prince. If people find out the mother of the crown prince has remarried, how do you expect the world to regard me? The lady of the mountain academy was startled. I touched Ji Yuan's head and told her to take Ji Yuan out first. Zhao Mingxi, standing before me in an embroidered robe and a jade belt, already bore quite the appearance of a crown prince, yet the panic and anger in his eyes still revealed his youth. From this moment on, I am no longer your mother, just pretend I'm dead. Zhao Mingxi was bewildered. But you're still alive, standing right here in your wedding gown, about to marry someone else. How am I supposed to consider you dead? Zhao Mingxi, you can treat me as dead from now on. Or is it that you want both my role as your mother and the position of crown prince? He murmured. Then isn't that impossible? Everyone else has their parents by their side. Why can't you? I can't do it. I've already sacrificed 10 years for you. From now on, I just want to live for myself. Zhao Mingxi's eyes instantly turned red. I looked into it. That guy Ji Yuan is mute. He shot a resentful glance at Ji Yuan beneath the corridor. Are you really willing to take a mute as your son, rather than a crown prince? Ji Yuan worriedly craned his neck to look over. Ji Yuan isn't mute, Zhao Mingxi. It's not that I don't want you, it's you who turned away from me first. I didn't. His tears finally fell. When did I ever say I didn't want you? I've never said that. He didn't know about his past life. He despised me for being fat, for being embarrassing, saying he'd rather have Song Fui as his empress mother. If I hadn't lost weight in this life, would he still want a mother who was as fat as a pig? Ignorant and talentless, he definitely doesn't want it. You stopped wanting me from the moment you threw the pastries I made to the dog, from the moment you refused to acknowledge me in front of your classmates, from the moment you left with your father. Go now, and don't come back again. Zhao Mingxi stood there, crying pitifully. Mom, I know I was wrong, but I'm still a child. Mom, can't you forgive me? I felt a twinge of sadness, but not much. Zhao Mingxi, you're not a little kid anymore. You're about to turn 11, 21. I forgave him, but my past self could not forgive me. After crying for a while, he gradually calmed down, wiping his face roughly with the back of his hand, a hint of pleading in his voice. Mother, could you make me another piece of Osmanthus cake? I shook my head. Today is my happiest day. I didn't make Osmanthus cake, but I can bring you some wedding candies to take back. I went inside and grabbed a packet of red paper-wrapped wedding candies, then pressed it into his hand. Zhao Mingxi looked down at the packet of candies, tears falling onto the red paper. He didn't say another word and turned away. When he reached the courtyard gate, he looked back once more before slowly walking out. 22. After marrying Jiyu Xingji, I went on a journey with him to various places. From a small northern town to a watery southern village, we wandered unhurriedly, lingering longer wherever the scenery was fine. Jiyuan followed behind us, carrying the little medicine pouch his father had sewn for him, never once complaining of tiredness. Once he started talking, he grew more and more talkative each day. Finally, we settled down in a small town in Jiangnan and opened a medical clinic. The shop front wasn't large. The front hall was for seeing patients and dispensing medicine, while the back courtyard was for living quarters. A Osmanthus tree was planted at the entrance, which I had Jiyu Xingji specifically find. In autumn, the tree turns golden, and its fragrance wafts across half the street, and so, the days settled into a quiet, steady rhythm. When Jiyuan grew a little older, he was sent to school to study. He was intelligent, though he spoke later than others. He learned to read quickly. The headmaster said he was destined for scholarship. Every day I would prepare his lunch and slip a pack of Osmanthus cake into his school bag, so he could eat if he felt hungry. One day, he came home starving, drinking several cups of water in a row. Didn't you eat the rice cake? I asked. I gave some to my classmates. They all said it was delicious and asked if I could sell it. I was busy sorting the vegetables and didn't take it seriously. What did you say? Jiyuan twitched his eyes, saying nothing. The next day, as soon as he came back, he proudly handed me a handful of copper coins. Mom, here's pocket money I earned for you. I was stunned. You earned this? Yeah, I made Osmanthus cake, 5 cash each, sold 6 today. Hold on, when did he learn how to make Osmanthus cake? Jiyuan puffed out his chest. I've learned your technique. I'll keep the Osmanthus cake you make for myself. If they want to eat it, they'll have to settle for the ones I make. I couldn't help but laugh and sigh. Later, his classmates noticed something was off with the smell and asked him what was going on. Jiyuan, expression unchanged, said, my mother made these. How could I sell them to you? They're only for me to eat. Then what about the ones you made? The ones I made aren't bad either. A classmate reported it to Jiyu Xingji. After hearing about it, Jiyu Xingji hurried to the academy to apologize to everyone, and then sent over several packages of the pastries I had made. Only then was the matter settled. When I returned, Jiyuan was sitting on the threshold, gnawing on his own Osmanthus cake, grimacing with each bite, yet stubbornly refusing to admit it tasted bad. I took a piece and took a bite. He fell silent. He put salt instead of sugar, so salty. Jiyu Xingji stood beside him, watching Jiyuan grimace from the saltiness and drink water repeatedly, and couldn't help but laugh in exasperation. Jiyuan puffed out his cheeks and shot his father a defiant look. Watching the two of them, one big and one small, I felt how wonderful this life truly was. Later, I heard that Zhao Mingxi and Zhao Jingrui had gone to that old courtyard to look for me more than once. They stood at the doorway for a long time, and in the end, they left. There is no imperial concubine named Song Fui in the palace. I have sent someone to inquire. Song Fui married this year's Tanhua, third-place scholar in the imperial examination. It is said that the Tanhua writes excellent essays and is upright in character. On their wedding day, the dowry procession stretched for miles, and it was a very lively affair. That must have been the man she had in her heart. Epilogue. After our marriage, life turned out to be far calmer than I'd imagined. Jiyu Xingji still rose early every day to prepare medicine. Sitting behind the counter at the clinic, calmly treating patients, I kept a few chicken coops in the backyard and cultivated half a bed of greens. Occasionally, I helped neighbors with sewing tasks. Though our life wasn't rich, it felt solid and peaceful. Ji-Yuan loved the evenings the most. The clinic was closed then, and Ji-Yu-Singji would bring out a small table under the Osmanthus tree. I served the dishes, and the three of us sat around it. Ji-Yuan was becoming more and more talkative, chattering non-stop about everything from who got the ruler in the academy to the 4 kittens born to the elderly neighbor's cat. One time, he suddenly paused, tilted his head, and looked at me. "Mom, why do you never call Dad by his name?" I choked on my food. Ji-Yu-Singji handed me a cup of water, his expression calm, though his ears were red. Ji-Yuan persisted. "Mom always calls him Dr. Ji-Yu, and so does Dad. Even though they're married, they're still so distant." I glared at him. "What do you care, you little kid?" Unconvinced, after dinner he tugged on Ji-Yu-Singji's sleeve, muttering something I couldn't hear. Ji-Yu-Singji listened, then gave me a thoughtful look. That night, he suddenly said, "Qingyao." I was taken aback for a moment before I realized he was calling my name. His voice was low, like the evening breeze blowing through an alley in summer. "From now on, call me Singji." I lowered my eyes and made a vague He called out again. "Qingyao." "Singji," he responded with a soft hum, a faint smile playing at the corner of his mouth. That night, Osmanthus blossoms fell all over the ground, their fragrance lingering long afterward. 02 The townspeople gradually came to know that Dr. Ji-Yu from the clinic had married a wonderful wife. Not just me, meaning Ji-Yuan. Since he learned to speak, this child has been as sweet-tongued as honey. He greets everyone with a smile, calls out to every passerby, and occasionally even recites bits of prescriptions for Ji-Yu-Singji, delighting the village women who come for treatment so much that they insist on giving him candy. Once, when old Lady Ju from the east end of town came to see about her rheumatism, Ji-Yuan brought her a little stool and a cup of hot tea, his childish voice gently warning, "Grandma, be careful, it's hot." Old Lady Ju was so touched her eyes turned red, gripping my hand and saying, "Your son is so well raised, truly well raised." I opened my mouth to say it wasn't my child, but closed it again. Ji-Yuan stood beside me, looking up at me with bright, sparkling eyes. His first word for me was "Mother" on the day I agreed to Ji-Yu-Singji's marriage proposal. Since then, he never changed his words. Sometimes I wonder, if his real parents knew he was now living so well, they might finally rest easy. Ji-Yu-Singji never mentioned the past, and I never asked. Some scars don't need to be reopened. 03 The next spring, I found out I was pregnant. It was Ji-Yuan who noticed first. That day, I was making Osmanthus cake at the stove when suddenly I felt dizzy, bracing myself on the counter, nearly losing my balance. Ji-Yuan rushed in from outside, saw my pale face, and was terrified. He turned and ran out, shouting all the way, "Father, father!" Ji-Yu-Singji, who was giving acupuncture to a patient, heard his voice and didn't even have time to pull the needle out. He immediately ran over. He took my pulse, lowered his eyes, and his hand trembled slightly. My heart tightened. "What's wrong?" He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "Qingyao, we're going to have a child." I froze. In my past life, I only gave birth to one child, Zhao Mingxi. That child made me endure 30 years in the palace, only to end up uttering those words. I thought I'd never become a mother again in this life. Never thought. Ji-Yuan stood on the threshold, craning his neck and asking, "Is mommy going to have a little brother?" Ji-Yu-Singji composed himself, his voice returning to normal. "It might be a little sister instead." Ji-Yuan jumped with joy, running all around the yard, shouting as he went, "I'm going to be an older brother. I'm going to be an older brother." When people in town heard the news, they all came to offer their congratulations. The wife of the academy's headmaster sent a full basket of red eggs, took my hand, and gave me detailed advice, everything from pregnancy care to postpartum recovery, leaving nothing out. Old Mrs. Ju sent over a old hen, saying it was raised at home and perfect for making nourishing soup. I thanked her one by one, feeling warm inside. In my previous life, when I was pregnant in the palace, many came to congratulate me, but their eyes held no goodwill, only scheming. They smiled and said, "Congratulations, Your Majesty the Empress," while secretly plotting how to manipulate this pregnancy for their own gain. This life is different. There's no scheming, no power struggles here, just real eggs, a real hen, and a steaming bowl of chicken soup. Ji-Yu-Singji didn't trust the town doctors. He searched through medical texts and personally prescribed a pregnancy stabilization formula for me. Every morning and evening, he would decoct the herbs and bring the tonic over, watching until I finished it before leaving. Once, I frowned and said I didn't want to drink it because it was too bitter. He was silent for a moment, then pulled 2 red dates from his sleeve and placed them in my palm. "Drink it and eat this." I suddenly remembered that time in the alley, when Ji-Yuan was tightly holding 2 red dates, refusing to let go. It was he who taught me 04. My belly is growing bigger day by day, and Ji-Yuan has become even clingier with me than before. Every day when he comes back from the academy, the first thing he does is run over and touch my belly, saying to it, "Little sister, be good. Once you're out, I'll take you out to play." I asked him, "How do you know it's a little sister?" He thought about it seriously and said, "Father wants a little brother, so I want a little sister. That way, she'll be on my side." Ji-Yu Xingji listened, and for once, he didn't argue. One afternoon, I was basking in the sun in the courtyard, drifting off to sleep. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the courtyard gate creaking open. I opened my eyes to see someone standing at the entrance. It was Zhao Mingxi. He had grown a bit taller since I last saw him, wearing a dark blue everyday robe, a white jade belt tied around his waist. There were no eunuchs accompanying him, only he himself. He stood by the door, his eyes fixed on my swollen belly, frozen in place. "Mother. You're pregnant." I straightened up slightly but didn't stand. "What are you doing here?" He didn't answer, only staring intently at my belly, his lips moving slightly, his eyes gradually turning red. "Is it the doctor's?" I nodded. Zhao Mingxi's face instantly turned pale. "Mom, how could you have a child with another man?" I looked at him, saying nothing. He seemed to realize what he'd said, lowering his head, his voice muffled. "I didn't mean it that way. I just what?" I asked. "Just that I, as your mother, should spend my whole life tied to you, taking care of you, and shouldn't have my own life." "No," he quickly denied, lifting his head only to have tears fall down. "I just miss mother." I fell silent. He stood in the yard, like a tree bent by the wind, thin and frail, with a hint of youthful obstinacy and grievance still written on his face. I sighed. "Come inside and sit down. Does your father know you're here?" He shook his head, sneaked out. He didn't say a word. I got up, went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and set it in front of him. He picked it up and downed it in one go. "Have you eaten?" Shook his head again. I went to the stove, warmed up a bowl of congee, sliced 2 small dishes of side dishes, and carried them over, placing them in front of him. He kept his head down, eating slowly, tears falling into the congee, mixing with the salty taste as he swallowed them. Ji-Yuan ran in from the backyard, saw Zhao Mingxi, and paused for a moment. Then he walked over, stood beside me, and tilted his face up to examine Zhao Mingxi. Zhao Mingxi also looked at him. The 2 children stared at each other for a while. Then Ji-Yuan suddenly spoke. "You're the older brother my mother gave birth to before." Zhao Mingxi was stunned. "How do you know?" Ji-Yuan said matter-of-factly, "That old robe Mom sewed has sleeves way longer than mine. I figured right away it was made for you before." Zhao Mingxi lowered his head, looked at the brand new brocade robe he was wearing, and said nothing. Ji-Yuan took 2 more steps forward, pulled a piece of Osmanthus cake from his pocket, and handed it over. "For you, my mom made it. Not the kind I make." Zhao Mingxi took the cake, his hand trembling slightly. He didn't eat it, but merely clenched it tightly in his palm, as if holding on to something invaluable. 05 That day, Zhao Mingxi stayed until dusk before leaving. Before departing, he stood at the courtyard gate and glanced back at me one last time. "Mom, can I come see you again in the future?" I nodded. "Study hard, don't give anyone worry," he responded softly, took a few steps, then stopped, his voice barely a whisper. "Mom, I'm sorry." I didn't reply. He walked far away, and Ji-Yuan still lay propped up on the doorway frame, staring after him. "Mom, brother will come back." I touched his head. "Maybe." 06 Zhao Mingxi indeed came again. At first it was once every few days, but gradually became more frequent. Each time he came, he wore ordinary clothes, without any attendants. Sometimes he brought a bag of snacks, sometimes a few books, saying they were recommended by the court's tutor for the child in my womb to read. Ji-Yuan found it strange and asked him, "Your sister hasn't been born yet, can she hear what's being read?" Zhao Mingxi solemnly replied, "She can hear." The tutor said that fetuses can already perceive the outside world, and frequently listening to poetry and books will make them more intelligent in the future. Ji Yuan believed him, brought a small stool over to sit beside her, and started listening along. Zhao Mingxi was reciting the asterisk book of songs asterisk, his voice not loud, but the pronunciation was very clear. The turtle doves coo, on the river's isle. As he recited, he suddenly stopped, his gaze falling upon me, his expression complicated. I said nothing. Just stitching clothes for the unborn child. He lowered his eyes and continued reading the next line. Jiyu Xingji didn't mind Zhao Mingxi's visit. He rarely talked to Zhao Mingxi. Occasionally, when Zhao Mingxi asked him something about medicine, he would give a brief reply, never saying more than necessary. Once, after Zhao Mingxi had left, Jiyu Xingji suddenly asked me, "Do you still harbor resentment toward him in your heart?" I didn't hesitate. I was resentful at first, but later, I wasn't anymore. He took my hand. "That's good." I rested my head on his shoulder, breathing in the faint scent of medicinal herbs from him. "Doing it, the best decision I've ever made in my life is not going to the palace with you." He said nothing, just tightened his arms. 07 The child was born in August. It rained heavily that day, so Jiyu Xingji closed the clinic and stayed in the delivery room himself. The midwife, sent by the principal's wife from a neighboring town, was experienced and skilled. Zhao Mingxi somehow found out about it and came rushing through the rain. He stood in the courtyard, thoroughly soaked, his face even paler than mine. Ji Yuan ran out with an umbrella, standing on tiptoe to hold it over him. While getting half of his own shoulder drenched, Zhao Mingxi glanced down at him briefly. His lips moved slightly, but he said nothing. It just happened to clear up when the child was born, a girl. Jiyu Xingji held her in his arms, his hands trembling. Ji Yuan stood on tiptoe, peering over Jiyu Xingji's arm, frantic. "Let me see my little sister. Let me see." Zhao Mingxi stood at the doorway, not coming in. He looked from afar at the tiny bundle, his eyes reddened, yet he never took a single step forward. I glanced at him and said softly, "Come in and take a look." He hesitated for a moment, then slowly walked over. Looking down at the crumpled little baby, he suddenly smiled. "Mother, she's so small." I smiled. "You were this small when you were a baby." His tears suddenly fell, landing on the baby blanket. "Mom, I truly know I was wrong." I didn't respond. He didn't say anything else either, just standing there, crying helplessly as he did when he was a child. Ji Yuan glanced up at him, then at me, suddenly reaching out to gently pat Zhao Mingxi's wrist. "Brother, don't cry, sister is very good." Zhao Mingxi lowered his head, roughly wiping his face with his sleeve. Outside the window, the rain had stopped. 08 On the day the child turned 1 month old, people from the town all came to congratulate. The principal's wife sent a longevity lock, old lady Ju brought a basket of eggs, and even several children from the school pooled their copper coins to buy a pair of silver bracelets. Small though they were, they carried heartfelt intention. Zhao Mingxi also came. He brought a redwood box. When opened, it revealed a pair of white jade ruby ornaments of excellent quality. "This is a 1-month-old birthday gift for the younger sister." He placed the box on the table, glanced at the baby in swaddling clothes, and hesitated before asking, "Has the younger sister been named yet?" I said, "Yes." Jiyu Xingji consulted books for several days. "She's called Jiyu Anlan." "Anlan," he repeated the name, then nodded. "Good name." Ji Yuan crouched by the crib, shaking the rattle with a loud rhythm, muttering, "Anlan, Anlan, I'm your brother. Call me brother." The baby yawned. Ignoring him, Ji Yuan didn't lose heart and continued shaking the rattle. Zhao Mingxi watched the scene, the corners of his mouth curving upward almost involuntarily. That was the first time I saw him smile with genuine sincerity. 09 On the day of the child's 100-day celebration, Zhao Jingrui also came dressed in casual clothes. He stood at the gate of the courtyard, gazing from a distance at the little baby in the cradle, an indefinable emotion in his eyes. Zhao Mingxi's expression changed when he saw him. "Father, why are you here?" Zhao Jingrui did not answer. He simply looked at me. "Let me take a look." I neither invited him in nor drove him away. After standing for a while, he suddenly said, "She looks like you." I didn't respond. He stood there for a while longer, then turned and walked away. Zhao Mingxi watched his back, lips moving as if wanting to say something, but in the end he remained silent. I patted his shoulder. "Go inside, it's windy out here." He kept his head down and followed me into the house. 10 days passed one after another like this. When Jiyu Anlan learned to walk. It was spring of the following year. The osmanthus tree in the courtyard isn't yet in bloom, but the pear tree is already covered in white flowers. A breeze blows, and petals fall all over the ground. Jiyuan holds his younger sister's hand and practices walking beneath the tree, takes a few steps, falls down, doesn't cry, gets up and tries again. It's Jiyu Anlan who cries instead. She wobbles unsteadily on her feet, and whenever she falls, she simply sits on the ground, looking up with her face toward her brother, waiting for him to help her up. Jiyuan always runs over, carefully pulls her up, muttering, "Don't cry, sister, don't cry, your brother's here." Zhao Mingxi stared at the scene, remaining silent for a long time. Later, he suddenly said to me, "Mother, wasn't I very disrespectful before?" I was taken aback, never expecting him to ask such a thing. Why suddenly ask that? He lowered his head, his voice muffled, "Because now, looking at Anan, I finally understand what it means to be an older brother. I didn't know anything before." I looked at him, and suddenly my heart ached. The 11-year-old boy already bore traces of adulthood in his features. He had grown much taller since first entering the palace, his frame more solid, his shoulders broader. Yet the unease and guilt in his eyes had never faded. I reached out and adjusted his collar. "Axie, one can only let go of the past by moving forward." He looked up, gazing at me. "Then did mother let go?" I didn't answer. He waited a while but received no response, so he stopped asking. 11. When Jiyu Anlan was 3 years old, Jiyu Xingji's clinic had firmly established itself in the town. His medical skills were excellent, and he was gentle with people, never minding the fees. Whenever poor families came to see him, not only did he refuse to charge them, but he would even provide medicine at his own expense. Elderly people in the town all spoke highly of him, praising him with a thumbs up. Jiyuan also performed admirably in school. The head of the academy said he had a true talent for studying and that he would undoubtedly achieve official rank one day. When he returned home and repeated those words to me, Jiyu Xingji was grinding medicinal powder, not even lifting his head. "What's the point of pursuing an official title? Isn't it better to learn medicine with me?" Jiyuan stuck out his tongue. "I want to become an official. Once I'm a high-ranking official, I can protect mom and my younger sister." Jiyu Xingji glanced at him. "Though I'm just an ordinary man, I've never let anyone bully your mother." Jiyuan was speechless, muttering under his breath, "That's different. What's the difference?" Jiyuan couldn't answer, pouting as he dragged Jiyu Anlan out to play. Jiyu Anlan, pulled along by him, turned back and smiled at Jiyu Xingji, her face smeared with drool. Jiyu Xingji sighed and reached for a handkerchief to wipe her face. 12. Zhao Mingxi had been coming less frequently over the years. His studies within the palace had become increasingly demanding. His tutor said his talent was not among the finest, but he made up for it with diligence. Given enough time, he might still achieve something. Zhao Jingrui had gradually grown somewhat satisfied with him and began to involve him in some matters of state affairs, yet he still came once every 1 or 2 months. Sometimes she brought a pack of snacks, sometimes a few books, and sometimes nothing at all, just sitting in the courtyard, watching Jiyuan and Jiyu Anlan running around, playing. Once, Jiyu Anlan fell and tumbled onto the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Zhao Mingxi reacted faster than Jiyuan did, dashing over in a few steps and picking her up awkwardly, trying to comfort her. Stop crying, brother's here." Jiyu Anlan wouldn't listen, wailing even louder. Her little legs kicked wildly, nearly kicking him in the face. Zhao Mingxi looked at me, at a loss, and I suppressed a smile without moving. Finally, Jiyu Xingji came over, took Jiyu Anlan from me, patted her back twice, and her crying instantly stopped. Zhao Mingxi watched the scene, his gaze a bit dim. After standing silently for a moment, he said, "Mother, I should be going back now." I nodded. He walked to the door, then suddenly stopped, his back facing me, speaking softly. "Mother, you're right. One can only let go of the past by moving forward." I said nothing. He stepped across the threshold and walked away without looking back. That evening, Jiyu Xingji was boiling medicine at the stove when he suddenly said, "This child has changed a lot." I hummed in response, saying nothing more. "Has it changed?" "Probably has." "Yes." 13. When Jiyuan was 12 years old, He passed the examination and entered the local academy. The day the news came, Gu Anlan ran all around the courtyard, calling out, "Big brother is going to become an official. Big brother is going to become an official." Ji-Yuan crossed his arms, pretending to be calm, but his eyes and eyebrows were brimming with pride. "Mother, I'll definitely earn a degree and official title one day. I'll bring honor back to you." I chuckled and lightly tapped him on the head. "It doesn't matter if it's an official decree or not. Just study hard and don't make your mother worry." Ji-Yuan patted his chest and assured him, "I won't." Jiyu Xingji stood beside, expressionless, adding, "If you don't pass the exam, your father's clinic still needs someone to fetch the herbs." Ji-Yuan choked on his breath, his face turning bright red. Jiyu Anlan hugged Jiyu Xingji's legs and looked up, asking, "Father, is picking herbs fun?" "Not fun at all." "Then, if brother doesn't pass the exam, can he come play with me?" Jiyu Xingji thought for a moment and said, "Yes." Ji-Yuan's face turned even redder when he escorted me back to my room. I couldn't help but laugh. "You always know how to tease him." Jiyu Xingji's lips curved slightly upward, but he said nothing that night. Ji-Yuan couldn't sleep, tossing and turning. The next day, he went to school with 2 dark circles under his eyes. Jiyu Xingji had prepared a medicine to invigorate him. Ji-Yuan took a sip, wrinkled his nose at the bitter taste, but still gulped it all down. Jiyu Anlan leaned over the table and pushed his red dates toward his brother. "Brother, eat." Jiyu An responded quietly. His eyes reddened as he stuffed a red date into his mouth. 14. The last time Zhao Mingxi came was when he was 17. He had grown into a tall, graceful young man, his features having lost the youthful freshness of adolescence and gained a certain solemnity. Dressed casually, without any attendants, he stood alone at the courtyard gate for a long time. When I came out to collect the clothes, I finally saw him. "How long have you been standing here?" "Just arrived." He paused. "Mom, I'm getting married." I hesitated for a moment, then put down the clothes in my hands. "Which family's girl is she?" "The daughter of the Grand Tutor, Miss Xu. It was arranged by your Majesty." I looked into his eyes, which held resignation and a faint, barely noticeable weariness. "Do you truly want this?" He was silent for a while. "It doesn't matter whether he's willing or not. If your Majesty deems it appropriate, then it is appropriate." I said nothing. He lowered his eyes, his voice growing softer. "Mother, I actually envy him quite a bit. He can do whatever he wants and choose the path he desires. I can't." The osmanthus tree in the courtyard rustled softly in the breeze. "Axi, you are the crown prince." "I know." He smiled faintly, the smile tinged with bitterness. "That's why I'm never truly free to choose." "Mother, actually when I was little, I once wished not to be crown prince or even a prince, just stay beside you, chopping firewood and tending the stove, attending the academy, passing the imperial examination, and becoming a righteous official." Later, when father found me, I finally learned that my father was the emperor. I thought being crown prince was such a wonderful thing, being able to do whatever I wanted, but later I realized, the crown prince is precisely the one who can least do as he pleases. He lowered his head, kicking at a small pebble by his foot. "Mom, sometimes I dream about us still living in that little courtyard. You'd have cooked the meal, and I'd come home from school." Lifting the pot lid, his voice caught in his throat, and he fell silent. I looked at him, and suddenly my heart ached, not from pity, but from the kind of sorrow you feel when you watch a tree grow from a sapling into a tall tree yet grow crooked. "Axi, let bygone things be in the past. Now you have a new path ahead. Keep moving forward, don't look back." He didn't respond. After standing there for a while, he took out a small cloth bundle from his chest and handed it to me. "This is a birthday gift for your younger sister and also for Anan. I probably won't be coming here often from now on." I took the cloth bag and opened it. Inside were a pair of jade pendants, one engraved with the character N, the other with Lan. The craftsmanship wasn't refined, even somewhat rough. The edges had a few uneven spots, as if carved by hand. "You carved these?" He nodded. "The carving isn't good, but just wear it as is." I put the cloth package away, and nodded. He turned around, took a few steps, then stopped. "Mother, I've never held it against you." I froze for a moment. "You said you've let it go, so I'll let it go too. From now on, you live your life, and I'll live mine. Mother, I just hope you're happy." That evening, He walked far into the sunset and never looked back. 15. When Ji Yuanlan was 7 years old, the academy granted a holiday, and Ji Yuan returned home to stay for a few days. He had grown noticeably taller, and his voice had changed too, making him seem like a half-grown adult. As soon as he stepped in the door, he picked up Ji Yuanlan and spun her around several times, making her giggle uncontrollably. Brother, did you bring me something delicious? Yes, I did. Osmanthus cake, your favorite. He pulled out a paper-wrapped package from his bundle. Ji Yuanlan took it, unwrapped it, picked up a piece, and popped it into her mouth. Her cheeks puffed out, and she chewed happily. Made by Mom? No, I bought it on the way. Mom's version tastes better than mine, so I just bought some for now. I'll make it myself later when I've gotten better. Ji Yuanlan generously handed him a piece. Then brother, have some too. Make it yourself for your little sister later. The brother and sister sat on the threshold, one eating, the other watching. As the sunset stretched their shadows long, Ji Yuxingji came out of the clinic and stood beside me. Anan has grown up. Yeah, just like you. I turned my head to look at him. I meant your temperament. I didn't respond, just stared at the two shadows on the threshold, feeling something indescribable in my heart. The day Zhao Mingxi left was also such a sunset, only he had no younger sister, and no one sat him on the threshold to eat Osmanthus cake. Ji Yuxingji reached out and grasped my hand. Qingyao, thank you. For what? He didn't answer, just tightened his fingers. Later, I never asked again. Some things don't need to be said. 16. After that, I never saw Zhou Myonghui again. It was only one autumn year that I received a letter from him, sent from the capital city. The letter was brief, only a few lines. Mother, being crown prince is difficult. I don't know if I can do well, but I'll try my best. Mother, please take care of yourself and my younger sister. 11. Respectfully. I put the letter into a small box, placing it together with the old letters from before. Ji Yuxingji saw it, but said nothing. That night, for the first time ever, he spontaneously brought out a flask of wine, sat in the courtyard, and poured 2 cups. Qingyao, have a drink. I took the wine cup and took a sip. The heat burned down my throat. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking, if I had entered the palace back then, what would my life be like today? Ji Yuxingji stayed silent for a while. It would have been different. You won't have an easy time. I froze. Looking at him, he thought carefully. Palace life isn't suitable for you. How do you know? He didn't answer, just raised his wine cup and lightly tapped my cup's rim. Ji Yuanlan ran out from the room, clinging to the doorframe and shouting, I want to drink too. Ji Yuxingji remained impassive. Children shouldn't drink alcohol. Ji Yuanlan pouted stubbornly. Ji Yuan peeked out from behind her, still holding a book, and solemnly echoed, Father's right, children shouldn't drink alcohol. But isn't the older brother not a child anymore? Ji Yuan puffed out his chest. I'm already 14. I'm not a child anymore. I'm also 14. Mom, I'll be 14 next year. After saying that, Ji Yuanlan hugged my arm and pouted cutely. I couldn't help it as she kept swaying me, so I dipped my chopsticks into a bit of wine and touched her tip of tongue. She sucked her lips and, it's so bitter. Ji Yuxingji rarely laughed out loud, his deep chuckle scattering into the fragrant breeze of Osmanthus blossoms. That year, the Osmanthus bloomed for a long time. 17. The year Ji Yuanlan came of age, Ji Yuan had already secured a minor official position in the capital. It's not big, but he earned it himself, step by step. Whether Zhao Mingxi helped him along the way, I don't know, and I never asked. Ji Yuanlan doesn't look like me. She takes after her father, her features are faint, she doesn't talk much, but when she smiles, her eyes seem to hold stars. People from the town came to propose, and matchmakers' feet wore through the threshold, yet she paid them no mind, saying she only wanted someone like her father. When Ji Yuxingji heard this, he paused, cup in hand. I'm not the kind of person who's easy to find. Ji Yuanlan nodded seriously and said, so I've decided not to marry at all. I'll stay at home and take care of mother. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly, scolding her a little, but she didn't get angry, she just giggled, leaning against Ji Yuxingji's arm and pouting playfully. Father, I'm serious. How many men are there like you? I've seen the aristocratic young men of the capital. Some are arrogant, others are lazy and idle. Not one of them compares to you. Ji Yuxingji remained expressionless. When did you meet him? Jiyu Anlan was speechless, giving a forced laugh before hastily walking off to find Jiyu and 18. What happened afterward? He only heard about. I heard that Zhao Jingrui has abdicated. Zhao Mingxi ascended the throne. With the era name Yong'an, they say the new emperor is diligent, often reviewing memorials deep into the night, and has only one empress and 2 consorts in the harem, treating them equally without favoritism. I hear he didn't invite me back to the palace, nor did he come looking for me again. The words he spoke about letting go were truly let go. Jiyuan comes to visit me once a year, bringing all sorts of new things from the capital, for Jiyuan Lan, for Jiyu Xingji, and for me. One year, he brought a painting, saying it was done by the most famous artist in the capital, depicting peonies in the palace in full bloom. Jiyuan Lan glanced at it briefly and said it wasn't as lovely as the Osman. Thus in her courtyard. Jiyuan chuckled lightly, saying nothing in response. When he left, I walked him to the gate of the courtyard. He suddenly turned back, pulled out a tiny pouch from his sleeve, and stuffed it into my hand. Mother, the emperor asked me to give this to you. I opened the pouch and found a withered Osman thus blossom inside. No letter, no note, just a withered flower. Jiyuan said, the emperor said it was picked many years ago from his mother's courtyard. He's kept it for a long time. I held the flower in my hand, saying nothing. Jiyuan looked at me, hesitating as if wanting to say something, but in the end said nothing. He mounted his horse and left. The wind passed through the Osmanthus trees, rustling softly. I put the pouch into the box. Jiyu Xingji came out and stood beside me. He didn't ask anything, just gently placed his arm around my shoulder. That evening, the clouds in the west were blazing a deep crimson. I suddenly remembered many years ago, also at such a dusk, Zhao Mingxi was sick in the palace, writing a letter with crooked characters, saying he missed me back then. I hard-heartedly did not reply to his letter. Later, he came so many times, standing at the door with red eyes, saying he missed his mother. I didn't soften at all, but now, looking at this withered flower, I suddenly feel a hint of regret. Not regret for not going back, but regret not telling him in the letter, your daughter is doing well, you take care of yourself too. 19. Jiyu Xingji's clinic had been open for many years. It started with just a few herbal medicines, but over time, it grew to have everything. Patients came not only from the town but even from neighboring counties. Drawn by his reputation, he still didn't charge poor people for consultations, still didn't talk much, but the lines on his face gradually deepened, and the white hairs at his temples could no longer be hidden. I still sewed clothes for him, stitched his shoe soles. Once he said, Qingyao, the clothes you sew now fit much better than before. I shot him a look. Back then, you didn't say they fit, you said they were just like burlap sacks. His ears turned red, and he walked away with his hands clasped behind his back. Jiyu Anlan laughed so hard he could barely stand up. Later, Jiyuan married a girl from a scholarly family in the capital. She was gentle and well-mannered, speaking softly and politely. I didn't attend the wedding, but Jiyu Anlan went on my behalf. When he returned, he imitated her, saying the bride was beautiful and that the groom looked even better in his red robe. Jiyuan was promoted every few years, neither too quickly nor too slowly, steadily and securely. Zhao Mingxi issued one imperial decree after another. He never mentioned it to me, but I knew that among those rewards, Jiyuan had a share. I said nothing, neither did he. Some things need not be spelled out. 20. I'm getting old. My hair has turned grey, my back is bent, and I don't walk as briskly as before. Jiyu Xing's back is also bent, but he still rises early every day to prepare medicine, sits behind the counter, and treats patients. His hands don't tremble, his eyes don't fail, and when diagnosing with pulse-taking, his expression is as focused as in his younger days. Jiyu Anlan married a humble scholar who taught school. Life was poor, but the couple were deeply in love. She came back every few days, bringing her children, running all around the yard. The little ones were noisy and boisterous, and Jiyu Xingji, annoyed by the commotion, would frown and glare at them. For a moment, they would quiet down, only to start up again right away. He sighed, turned back into the house, brought out a chess set, and taught them how to play. The children couldn't sit still and scattered soon after. Only the youngest remained, her hair in twin buns, earnestly looking at the table. Jiyu Xingji asked her, do you understand it? She shook her head. Isn't it obvious? She said. Grandpa looks good. Gu Xingji remained silent for a long time. Later, he put the chess set away, took out a piece of candy from his pocket, and handed it to her. It was many years ago, the malt sugar that Gu Anlan loved most as a child. Leaning against the doorframe, watching this scene, I suddenly remembered many things. I remembered the first time Gu Anlan learned to speak and called out mother. I remembered the first time Gu An kowtowed to me and said, "Mother, I will study hard." I remember the day Gu Xingji came to propose, the entire courtyard filled with bridal gifts, bright red like persimmons in autumn. I remember the sunset beneath the osmanthus tree, the cooking smoke drifting from the kitchen stove, and that letter reading, "Mother, I too wish I didn't have to be crown prince." That letter I kept at the very bottom of the box. Beside it lies the dried osmanthus flower Zhao Mingxi gave me. Year after year, flowers bloom and fall, past memories fade, slowly drifting away. Gu Xingji shoved a piece of candy into his granddaughter's hand, then looked up and saw me standing by the doorway. He walked over and took my hand. "Qingyao, next life, will you marry me again?" I smiled. "All right." The osmanthus outside the window is in full bloom, its fragrance drifting in waves. I was holding his hand tightly, and slowly closed my eyes. Extra story ends.